you. But to start off, like, there's a quote that I always love that says something along the lines of, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And I absolutely love that quote because it really shows the impact of working together as a team and learning from each other, and actually the ability of what we can do if we learn basically globally. But before I get into anything, please can I ask everybody to put your mute buttons on? There's quite a lot of background sound, if you don't mind. So if you can just put your mutes on. What I am going to request is that we ask questions at the end, and I'm going to ask you to type them in, but I'll get to that detail now. For those of you I don't know, I think there are a couple of people on this call. My name is Leanne. I am the MD of Namu. Love this brand. I think it's the most amazing brand, but I also think in times like this, it's a brand that has been quite hard hit. I've been privileged enough to speak to some of you, to speak to other people in the industry. And I mean, these times are exceptionally challenging. So things like comments I've heard, our sales have declined significantly. Some distributors talking about 20% sales going through versus normal. I've heard that, out of stocks, we're struggling. I know we've had requests, please, can we get orders across? From our side, we've been struggling to get orders across to you. So there's been a lot of complexity in the system. But I think what's really refreshing is to see how we rise into the occasion. How many people are doing different things to really get our name out there, and to also just to connect and to connect differently. So I think this whole COVID-19 new world is going to be our reality. And we've had many meetings internally saying, so what does it look like? And the truth is, it's right now, we're not 100% sure what it's going to look like, but we know it's going to be different. And it's defining that. And I think what the team have done, which has been really great, is they've done a whole lot of research into what are the trends, what's going on out there, and they've tried to consolidate it as much as possible. So what I'm going to ask is that we do save the questions to the end. Please, can you email? Well, there's a little button at the bottom where you can actually type in. You can actually type in your questions. So it says show conversation. You can type your questions in. I will read the questions and then just allow you to speak, because otherwise it's quite difficult when everybody wants to speak at the same time. So if we haven't learned anything else, I think technology is definitely something we've learned about more recently. How to handle Teams, how to handle Zoom, and I think we've learned a whole new workspace environment. But just in terms of the agenda, the first point is we'd like to discuss is what we have learned from the past. We're then going to talk about the 3 likely consumer responses that we are seeing. Then ideas on how we're going to succeed, and it's then that we're going to go into the Q&A, because I think there'll be a lot of questions. What we are seeing is that there are a lot of trends that people are coming up with. So what the team decided to do is just to focus on some of the key things that we are really seeing at the moment, so that we can get a sense, is it relevant to us or isn't it? The team have really worked hard on putting this presentation together, and I'd like to just thank everybody, getting information from all different sources, from you guys, from other global trends. So I think there's a lot of information to share, and I just want to say thank you to the team for doing that. And I think it's important that we all learn from each other, because if we've got nothing else, at least we've got each other to learn from. So the next person to speak is Robs. Robs has years and years of marketing experience. She's an absolutely passionate marketer. I love to speak about her passions, because I think it literally goes, well, I can't say, it'll probably go in the reverse order from trends to marketing to dogs. She has a passion for things. She's a passionate individual, and she loves taking information, consolidating it, and making it digestible so that we can actually do things with. But I'm not going to take anyone's thunder. Robs, I'm going to pass over to you.
Thanks, Leanne. So nice to have everyone on this call and to connect with you guys for the first time in quite some time, which is really exciting. So as Leanne said, my name is Roberta, and I am the head of marketing for Namu. And I'm really excited to share this presentation with you, just to give you a sense of where the consumer mindset is probably at this moment, and where it's likely to go into the short to medium term. Before I get into that, I just wanted to first let you know where South Africa is in terms of Corona. So I'm conscious that every country is in a different stage of isolation or recovery. Some countries didn't even go into lockdown. In terms of South Africa, we're currently still basically in lockdown. We have some of the strictest lockdown measures in the world. For example, no cigarettes can be sold during lockdown. Alcohol cannot be sold. So very strict market conditions at the moment. And skincare salons are likely to remain closed in South Africa for the next month or two. So that is, we're seeing South African salons and the skincare business in NIMU being quite hard hit in SA, but we understand that each of your countries is different. So we bear that in mind. We have basically pulled this presentation together from multiple data sources. And in true technology fashion, my slides are not changing. Let me just quickly go out and go back in. Oh, sorry for that. So yes, we have pulled this data from multiple sources. Our two key partners on this piece of work has been Kantar, which is a global data and insights consultancy company, and they're one of our strategic partners. We've also got M&C Saatchi Group South Africa, and although M&C Saatchi, it says it's a South African group, they've got offices in over 26 countries, including London, New York, and Singapore. And M&C Saatchi are actually the creative agency for NIMU, Skin Technology. So we're working with two global organizations that have pulled insights from multiple sources globally. So rest assured that the majority of the content in this presentation is global and not just a South African view. And I'm still unable to change my slides. I don't know if anyone in my team, oh, there we go. There, sorry, it's just a bit slow. I apologize. So we're living in radically disrupted and overwhelming times. And I think this is quite possibly the understatement of the century. Life has forever changed as we know it. Corona is going to be a watershed moment for all of us around the world. And before Corona, there was a saying that companies are operating under a circumstance or a situation called VUCA, and that is VUCA. And VUCA is an acronym that stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous conditions. So that's VUCA. And if before Corona, that defined the conditions under which we operate in, I think during Corona, it's like VUCA on steroids. Things have never been more volatile or uncertain as they are now. And interestingly enough, the word VUCA in Zulu actually means wake up. Zulu is one of the 11 official languages in South Africa, and it's quite fitting that it means wake up because Corona has been a wake-up call for many of us. So life has changed. We are all navigating uncharted waters. None of us are quite sure what the impact will be on our country, on our families, our businesses, and the economy. And there is an underlying sense of stress and anxiety for all of us. How will this actually all end up? What will the future hold? The future is uncertain. The coronavirus has been the great human equalizer for all of us. Regardless of gender, race, geography, or income level, no one is spared. We're all going through this together, and there is a lot of nervousness around will growth recover? Will Corona happen again? Will you get out of lockdown and have another outbreak and have to go back into lockdown? But one thing is for sure, that once we emerge from this lockdown or this pandemic, we will be faced with a new normal. But the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So when we look at consumers and we look at us as a human race, we're essentially all very resilient beings, and we have an amazing ability to pick. Our agency, MNC Saatchi, looked at the predictable social media patterns for outbreaks and pandemics in the past. And if you look at Zika virus, the Ebola virus, and swine flu, they all show very familiar patterns in terms of consumer response. In all of these instances, there is an initial anxiety and fear and heightened mentions of the pandemic and everything related to the pandemic. But as the pandemic moves through, people move on. And actually, we see that a lot of people start getting annoyed or fatigued every time the pandemic or the virus or the disease is mentioned, because people move on mentally and emotionally. So predictably, in the past, there have been 3 phases dealing with times of crisis. The first is fear and anxiety. And as I mentioned earlier, we're all in different phases in our respective countries. But it starts with fear and anxiety. Will I get sick? Will I lose my job? What will the impact be on our country? And then you move into crisis fatigue. Some people have called it an infodemic, where you actually get all coroned out. There's only so much corona information you can absorb, and eventually you just want to move on. And the last phase is what we're going to talk about in today's call, and that is adjustment. Once you come out of this crisis, we will all face a new normal. So this presentation is around what does that new normal look like, and how do we prepare our businesses and our brand to succeed in that environment. One thing is for certain, and that is that for consumers, life will probably never go back to normal, to the way it was before. We're going to see a new normal. And the long-term impact of corona could end up being much more disruptive to culture and the human condition. Life will change for consumers. You will see the introduction of new products and services. You will start seeing people's lifestyles adapted to seasonal virus. You will start seeing downscaling and reduced spending in certain areas. And the question for all of us is, what do our brands and our businesses need to do to respond to that change? But as tough as it feels today, the good news is that the world, most outlooks tell us that there is an end in sight. China, data coming out of China after 4 weeks after lockdown suggests that there is a recovery in things like FMCG, so fast-moving consumer goods. And we've tapped into a lot of data coming out of China as they have a lot of foresight and insight into what the future holds post and move into the recovery phase. So what's next for NIMU? What's now next for your business and our brand, NIMU Skin Technology? We've taken all the data and insights from our partner companies and put together what we believe the 3 likely consumer responses are to this crisis. There are obviously, as Leanne said in the beginning, there's lots of data and insight. So we have specifically looked at what consumer responses are most likely to impact the NIMU business and each of your businesses as distributors of NIMU. And before we can work out how we are going to respond, we need to look at how consumers will respond. And all the data is pointing to these responses. Is called back to basics. And this is where we see category shifts driven by consumers who historically have wanted it all, have now shifted to a renewed respect for the essentials. And this is rooted on the basic belief that category choice for consumers is driven by needs and motivations. And in times of crisis, people reevaluate what is important to them, and you will often see a fundamental shift in motivation. The triangle you see in front of us is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Sorry, just checking, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the triangle in front of you is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And how it works is that the bottom of the pyramid is the most basic needs of consumers. And that is around survival, food, shelter, safety, and security. As you move up the pyramid, you get to the more complex needs and motivations. So love and belonging in the middle is something we have all been deprived of during lockdown and periods of isolation. And then above love and belonging are the need for esteem, so the need for status and recognition, and the most complex need of all, which is self-actualization, which is the need to achieve, to pursue goals, etc. I've discovered that I actually cannot change slides unless my camera is on. Apologies for that. On this slide, you will actually see the different categories that answer each of the needs in Maslow's hierarchy. So in physiological, it's all about food and beverage. It's about medicine and epidemic prevention. For consumers looking to feel safe and secure, they would look to things like medical insurance, banking, financial management, vitamins, clothing, and household cleaning items. The categories consumers use to feel love and belonging are things like restaurants, alcohol, telecommunications, and social media. When consumers want to feel a sense of esteem and status, they turn to categories like luxury goods, hair salons and skincare salons, cosmetics, appliances, electronics, and personal care items. And when it comes to self-actualization, consumers turn to things like gym, wealth management, weight loss, travel, etc. So this gives you a sense of what need states and motivations are linked to certain product categories. And as you can see, the skincare and beauty salon talks to the esteem need state, because there lives personal care as well as hair and skincare salons. But what you actually see in times of crisis is a shift in need states and a shift in consumers' motivations. So in times of crisis, consumers hold on to their basic needs. So things like food, roof over your head, safety and security, medicine, health, those things go from being basics to being treasures, never to be taken for granted again. Love and belonging, which is in the center of the hierarchy of needs, is being impacted by social distancing and isolation, but this will return to normal after the pandemic moves through. But what we see is that the top part of the pyramid will be deprioritized and change. In the short term, needs like esteem, status, and self-actualization will receive less focus. And consumers will favor basics and love and belonging over things like luxury items or visiting their skincare salon. This can manifest differently in different markets, and at the end of the presentation, we will talk to how we can overcome this as the Minu brand to ensure our sales are not as hard hit. So that is the first consumer response, which is consumers shifting from luxury items back into the basics, shifting from wanting it all to a renewed respect for the essentials. The second shift we will see is a shift called release. And this is all about a need for heightened, indulgent experiences, but within my budget. There's a great quote that summarizes the release phenomenon, and it was by the African Business Review. And it says, a situation that occurs when a boundary or restriction has been removed, resulting in exuberance and an urgent need to experience and own all the good things in life. And we've seen this through a lot of pictures and funny videos that have been shared on social media. Consumers are really missing their hair salon appointments, their nail appointments, and people are joking on social media that they will be rushing to their nearest hair salon or nail salon to fix what their nails and hair looks like after lockdown. And I'm not sure about you, but I can certainly relate to that. They're even saying that salons, skincare salons and beauty salons need to actually prepare for a mad rush and influx of clients after lockdown. And some of you may already be seeing this in your markets. But we saw this after SARS. Globally, there was significant increases in release categories. So fast food turnover saw a 29% increase, restaurant turnover 20% increase, and pleasure retail saw a turnover increase of 35%. Most data sources and inside companies are predicting a confidence rebound after Corona, as this has been seen in past times of global crisis. A quote from the consumer psychology consultancy called Psychology is that once the immediate threat lifts, luxury consumers will come back stronger in a backlash against all the worry and anxiety they experienced during the crisis. It happened after World War II, after 9/11, and the most recent Great Recession. China several weeks ago are that Chinese consumers are gradually regaining their confidence as COVID subsides, suggesting the majority will resume higher levels of spending in some categories over the coming months. Some even have called this phenomenon revenge spending. For those who still have disposable income, it's almost like a defiant response that after a month and a half of closures and restrictions, those who were previously trapped at home are celebrating their renewed freedom by visiting their favorite luxury shops and engaging in revenge spending. And that is what release is all about. It's about going out there and fulfilling all of your indulgent needs that you weren't able to fill while you were in isolation or lockdown. And that is the second response that we expect. So the first was back to basics and essentials. The second is that release straight after lockdown and revenge spending. And the third is called reset. So the third consumer response is that we will all go back to life after lockdown, but with some new habits and expectations. A lot of those that are forming during this crisis will remain after the crisis moves on. This great quote from the CEO of Kantar is that once this crisis is over, some of the new habits will endure and brands will need to be ready for new omni-channel behaviors. So what do those omni-channel behaviors look like? We saw this on one of our WhatsApp groups and we all laughed, which is who led the digital transformation of your company? COVID-19 is accelerating digital transformation at a remarkable rate. And some of the stats and info I'm about to show you proves that point. We're seeing that consumers have adopted a new way of being and doing that is very omni-channel and involves a lot of digital platforms. The first is e-commerce. 84% of shoppers surveyed in China said they tried at least one new online e-commerce service during the corona crisis. Now, China is one of the most evolved and up-to-date e-commerce nations in the world. So for them to be trying one new e-commerce service really does tell us a lot. In terms of working from home, because most people have had to work remotely during this crisis, a company like Zoom has seen their share price go from $36 last year to $150 this year. When you look at things like fitness and working out, in America, Nike has seen more than 100% increase in their app's number of weekly active users. Their app is called the Nike Training Club app and offers home workouts and almost personal trainer-like advice. And we see socializing also changing in this new digital world. An app called House Party rose to the second most downloaded social networking app on the App Store by March 2020. Another social media app we see surging to the fore is called TikTok. TikTok is a Chinese video sharing social platform. It was launched in 2017 outside of China and allows users to create short videos, usually 3 to 60-second videos that they upload onto TikTok. And for some reason, this coronavirus isolation period seems to be driving a TikTok boom. And you will see from the stats on the screen that the downloads going week from week during lockdowns and this corona crisis have been significant. We see other brands such as Netflix and Apple also introducing new digital tools to accommodate our changing reality. Netflix Party allows their users to watch movies and series online with their friends so that you can joke and talk and share what you're watching together with your friends, even though you're all sitting in different households. Apple has launched Today at Home at Apple, which is similar to their Today at Apple sessions they used to host in their retail stores. But now they're actually using this platform to share creative projects that people can do at home using their Apple devices. They've even included a series of new activities for parents and kids to do together at home, especially around homeschooling and the need to educate in one's house. And then you've got Formula One, who've launched virtual Grand Prix series, and One World Together at Home, which is a virtual concert series to raise funds for the COVID-19 Solidarity Fund. Necessity is the mother of invention, and we're seeing that in crisis, brands are inventing new and creative ways for consumers to come together and interact with their products and services. We're also seeing that consumers are using media differently. There have been significant shifts to how people consume media during this crisis, with all of the digital platforms seeing significant spikes, whereas more traditional media like magazines and newspapers are probably going to be very hard hit, especially given there's evidence that the virus can live on paper for a prolonged period of time. So you see things like internet, online streaming, podcasts, and new mobile games really seeing significant growth during the crisis. This is a fantastic quote from Bruce Whitfield that says, "Perhaps the biggest gift the lockdown could offer is the chance to change routines and habits for good." Even though a lot of devastation and loss comes with this virus and this pandemic, there are some good things to come out of it. One of being this shared sense of collective. This quote says, "There is such a thing as society." We have entered a period of heightened empathy, an appreciation of mixed emotions, a greater awareness of those around us, and our time and place in the world. Through Corona, we have all come together on a global scale to weather the storm. Some describe it as a shift from an era of self to an era of shared humanity. Corona has really shaken our worlds and hopefully will be a watershed moment for humanity that brings about a resurgence of human values of belonging, shared humanity, and a sense of duty to the collective. Some even argue that the post-corona world is a world you'd rather live in because it's a world where community and connectedness is key, where new tribes are forming around shared values and experiences, where doing good is more important than achieving financially or in your career, where there's a new appreciation for simplicity and well-being. Things like self-care Sundays, it has been trending on social media, where people are making time to take care of themselves, to pamper themselves, and show some self-love. So that is the reset response. So in summary, the three key consumer responses we're expecting is back to basics, where consumers are shifting away from luxury, nice to haves towards the bare basics and the essential items. The second is release, which is a period which will probably be for only a short term immediately after lockdown, which is all about a need for heightened indulgent experiences. And the third response is reset, which is when consumers go back to their new normal, they will hold on to some of the new habits and expectations they formed during lockdown. So the big question for all of us is, how do we ensure that the Nimue brand and each of your businesses and each of your salons that are in your market are able to succeed during this time? And I think there are some key principles we need to remember while we weather the storm together. The first is flexibility and agility are critical success factors. Our world is changing by the week, by the month, and we need to remain close to this changing consumer landscape in order to ensure that whatever we do, whatever communication we put out there, fits the moment we're in. We are going to be talking to a variety of social listening partners around the world that use social media and digital mentions to actually track consumer conversations around the world to see what stage or phase are consumers in, what matters to them, how is their needs and motivations changing. And as we get that information, we're going to adapt our NIMU communication to fit those changing consumer mindsets. And lastly, authenticity, integrity, and empathy has to inform everything we do, from how we deal with our customers and our consumers to the tone of our communication that we put out into the world at this moment. And NIMU is a brand that has always been very true and authentic to itself. In terms of how we address these specific consumer responses, the first is back to basics, where we saw that NIMU could potentially battle financially or in terms of sales when consumers start prioritizing basic items over luxury items. And the key ways to overcome that is to position NIMU, both our home care products and in-salon treatments, as a need and not a want. The medium-term prediction is that personal care, which covers skin care, hair care, body care, is that category will maintain post-lockdown. So it's key that we are positioning NIMU as a personal care item, which is a need and not a want. We are going to spend a lot of our education resources on educating consumers on the link between skin health and overall health. Talking to the fact that the skin, at the end of the day, is an organ in your body that needs to be cared for. It is the largest organ in your body. We need to talk to the impact of increased stress and anxiety on the skin, because globally we see that stress and anxiety is going to be a big trend for people as they recover from this crisis. Many people have lost jobs. Many people have taken salary cuts. All of that is going to come with an increased stress on the system, and people are going to feel that and see that in their skin. And we also need to talk to the fact that caring for your skin is an act of self-care or self-love. And by doing these three things, we will enable NIMU to benefit from the shift towards the more basics and love and belonging, versus positioning it as a luxury item that is a nice to have. The second consumer response that we need to be ready for, and all of our customers need to be ready for, is release. Is all of this revenge spending that consumers will be doing immediately after lockdown. And the ways to make sure we are ready to capitalize on that trend is through increased hygiene and sanitization in salon. There are many consumers who will want to go back to salons for their nails, their hair, their facial, but will be very concerned if it's safe to do so. So it's important that salons put hygiene and sanitization practices in place and that they communicate that to their clients prior to reopening, so that clients know there is no risk to their health by going back into salons. There's an opportunity to do release specials. So maybe it's pay for 2 professional treatments and get 3. And maybe bulk buying discounts, because we see globally that consumers want to do fewer shopping trips and buy either bigger pack sizes or multiple of one item on each shopping trip. So bulk buying discounts will really capitalize on the revenge spending trend. It's an opportunity to cross-sell services within salons. So if you've got salons where Nimue is sold along with massage, aromatherapy, acupuncture, or nails, there's an opportunity to cross-sell those services. So with every Nimue facial you book and pay for, you will get half price on a massage, or get a basket of indulgent experiences for a good price. And although this has never really been the heart of Nimue, during this release revenge spending phase, which will only be short term, but during that phase, consumers are going to be looking for indulgent, pampering experiences. And it's important that our Nimue facials, where possible, include some kind of indulgent experience. For example, maybe therapists can offer a complimentary Indian head massage during your treatment, or maybe it's a complimentary hand massage while your mask is on. Something to make that experience memorable and indulgent so that consumers get the release benefit. And then the third consumer response, how to make sure we succeed in a time where consumers are resetting their behaviors and their shopping patterns. We need to make sure we are geared up and ready to do online consultations. There are consumers who will not feel comfortable going back into salons immediately, so we need to make sure we can do an online consultation for them. We need to explore, test, and bed down new ways of getting product to clients. And we've seen from many of you that you guys have all been very creative in finding new ways to overcome the lockdown and to get products to your clients. Some of those may need to still be in place after lockdown for clients who are not prepared to go into salons. We need to simplify the Nimue product offering. We've seen a global trend towards simplification, where less is more. Consumers will be downscaling in certain areas of their life, and so we need to start talking about a more simplified product offering. For example, we will be creating lots of content around why Nimue's 3 core items, being cleanser, conditioner, and moisturizer, are superior to competitor products, rather than talking about a core regime of 7 products, for example, because consumers will be looking for simplification. We need to explore shorter express professional treatments, and the education team is currently working with the marketing team on this to see how you can offer results and efficacious treatments in a shorter amount of time. And by doing this, it will also result in lower cost treatments for the clients. You need to enable clients to DIY at home. For those clients who are not prepared to go into salon, how do they use our products to get the best results in the comfort of their homes? And finally, we need to do more exclusive live events, sharing tips, tricks, and how-tos. Some of these will come from the Nimue head office. Some of these will come from you as distributors. And some of these salons will even create themselves. But to survive in a reset environment where consumers have adopted new behaviors, we need to do some of these things to ensure that we are successful. In closing, before we get to questions and answers, this quote from Charles Darwin sums it up perfectly. It is not the strongest of the species, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. And this is our opportunity to adapt with our changing consumers and ensure that the Nimue brand can succeed in the next medium to long term. That's all from me, handing back over to Leanne for Q&A.